All right. Good afternoon again, everyone. I think we're going to go ahead and get started just for respect of everyone's time here. Just a couple things, announcements before we get started here. Again, thanks for joining us. This is the first of our Hawkeye on Safety 2022 pre-conference webinars in our series. For those of you who are familiar with the Hawkeye on Safety conference, you will likely remember in previous years, we do 4 or 5 monthly webinars prior to our actual conference event in September. So this is the first of our 2022 webinar series. All of you are muted. We will do questions at the end of Vicki's presentation. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we will address them at the very end. I'd like to take a second to just read an introduction of Vicki, who is our presenter this afternoon. Again, thank you, Vicki, for your willingness to do this for us. For those of you who are, again, familiar with the Hawkeye on Safety conference, Vicki has agreed to be our keynote speaker this year. So for those of you who have attended Hawkeye on Safety or plan to attend it again, you will see her again in September. So Vicki O'Leary is our presenter this afternoon. She joined the Ironworkers International in January of 2016. Since that time, she became the chair of the North American Building Trades Union Tradeswomen's Committee. She's a 30-plus year member of the Ironworkers Local #1 in Chicago. She completed her triple major Bachelor of Arts degree in Union Leadership and Administration, Labor Education and Labor Studies from the National Labor College in 2008, and obtained her Master's of Arts degree from Gonzaga University in Organizational Leadership in 2012. She has also graduated from the Harvard Trade Union Program in 2018, along with Cornell's National Labor Leadership Initiative, also in 2018. She passionately strives for equal opportunity for all ironworkers, one that is free from bullying, harassment, and intimidation. And the title of her presentation today is based on harassment in the workplace. So Vicki, again, we thank you for being willing to present for us this afternoon. And it looks like your slide is up. So you can take it away.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate everybody that's on here today, especially, towards the end of the day. I know you've got a lot of things to do. So I just wanted to thank you guys. And I wanted to start with just a premise at the beginning that in my career, I've been an ironworker for 37 years. And in that time, there's no scientific data for this, but 90 to 95% of the men that I've worked with and worked around have been really good guys. It's that 5 to 10% that we're giving way too much power to. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, is that 5 to 10% and what that 90 to 95% of great guys can do to help out when you see somebody being bullied, harassed, or intimidated. So I just wanted to get that out of the way at the very beginning before we get started, because I don't want men to think I'm bashing you. Everything I've ever done in my life, I've had a great man standing behind me, whether it was my father, my husband, my son. This is something that I'm very passionate about. And I kind of wanted to give you the premise for Be That One Guy and how it started, and then go into some things beyond that. So it was February 14th, 2017, that social media was just blowing up. Every trade group has their own women's pages, and unlike just like everybody else, we have ours. And that night we saw that there was a murder of an apprentice, and her name was Udi Hicks, and she was murdered on Valentine's Day. And I'm going to show you a short video on that so you can kind of get the premise of how it all came to play. But that evening I was on the phone with 2 other ironworker women and just in disbelief of what had happened. And my question to them was, why couldn't there be that one guy that could have changed the tone of this situation? Because it wasn't like it was a one and done. The guy had kind of been harassing her for days. So there was definitely, a hint that something was going on. And with that, the 2 women that I was on the phone with was like, that's it. And I'm like, what's it? They're like, be that one guy. So that's how this was born. And I'm going to let you see a little bit more about that. And this might take a minute to load. Unfortunately, it's not doing, oh, there we go. Maybe we'll try this. There we go.
deputies say Aaron Lopez used an object to kill 32-year-old Udi Hicks.
Lopez was working with his co-worker moving scaffolding into a truck, but shortly after they were finished, something happened that led to the deadly confrontation. Hicks was a mother of 3. She was a hard worker with a great attitude, according to those who worked with her in the carpenter's apprenticeship program.
He was a day laborer, he wasn't a union laborer. And talking to ironworker women about that incident, I asked them if they were ever afraid on the job other than the work that they actually do. And all of them resoundingly said yes. So with that, I came up with the Be That One Guy. Be That One Guy is about empowering the men that are on the jobs that are really good guys to be a good guy. And it doesn't matter if they tell somebody to knock it off when they're being a jerk, or whether it's just by deflecting and talking about the game last night. It's just important that the bully that's on a job knows that other people are calling them out and that they know that it's not acceptable and that they're not going to put up with it.
I want to be that one guy.
So I'm going to stop it there because we don't need to watch that whole thing. But I just wanted to kind of give you like a glimpse of how this all came into be. So, but let's talk about stats first. So tradeswomen account for less than 4%. We're at 3.9% of the construction industry, and 11% includes those admin and white collar jobs. And when I say white collar jobs, I mean engineers, safety, project managers, quality control, and that sort of thing. Hispanic and Latino workers represent just under 33%. Black or African-American workers represent just 6%. Asians represent 4.5%. But there's barriers to diverse participation in the skilled trades. And part of that is the industry stereotypes, right? Generally, that's changing a little bit, but generally when we see pictures of construction workers, it's usually white and it's male. But I think we're starting to see that we're actually showing what the industry looks like, which is incredible, so that people that are coming in now, they can actually say, well, yeah, it looks like me, I can do this. And in vocab training, they say that there's limited training. Well, we know that all of the VOTEC schools are gone out of high schools. So unless you get an apprenticeship, you don't get that same kind of training. There's insufficient outreach. We don't know, or at least I'll hear from men in the ironworkers that they don't know where to find the women. And it's probably the same as the men, but they just, I think that there's good intentions, they just don't know where to go. And then once they get them in, discriminatory hiring practices, right? They don't send me a woman. Well, send them a woman and keep sending them a woman until one sticks, right? And then they talk about different kind of training that they're getting on the job. Some women have felt that they didn't get the same crack at doing all aspects of the industry. So we have to be very intentional in that. And they don't get the overtime assignments like their male counterparts do. And when I did look into this, it was true. I looked at a very good local that I thought had really good numbers of women in their program and African-Americans and that sort of thing. And I did look at it, and there was a difference in the hours that they worked. So we just have to be more intentional. But one of the things that IPWR just did a study on, they did the largest study of tradeswomen ever done. And the results came out in January. And if you guys want a copy of that, I can send Tammy over a link that you guys can have. But 44% of the women had said that they had in the last year thought about leaving the industry. And it wasn't because the work was too hard. It was actually because of the way they were treated on the job. So I think that we need to really start looking at this. So what are the barriers to participate in the skilled trades jobs, right? Again, lack of outreach and information. The building trades is the best kept secret. I don't know why, even for men it is. We've got to do a much better job of getting our programs out there and the information out there. And then stereotypes, we talked about that before, in segregated vocational education and women in apprenticeship. And then there's limited training and that impact of selection criteria, right? Maybe the woman that did apply is not the right woman, and you know she's not the right woman. Do we need to give her a shot? We probably should, and let her weed herself out. We don't know. If you would have known me back in 1985 when I became an iron worker, I was 110 pounds. I was skinny. I was a girly girl. I loved dressing up. I loved having my nails done. And that didn't stop just because I became an iron worker. It just meant that, you know, I looked pretty rough during the week. I remember my dad I was working for him on a job, and we stopped at Burger King on our way home to grab something to drink. And I walked in, and it was wintertime, and I had my Carhartts on, and I had a hat on my head, and because, you know, your hair gets all messed up from the hard hat. And the woman behind the counter said, "Son, can I help you?" And I just remember feeling so defeated. So then I realized that, okay, so I look pretty rough during the week, but when I clean up, I look like a girl. So we also have to worry about those micro inequities that happen over time. It's not just one and done and women are out. It's that same thing over and over again. So an example of that is every job women go on, if they're not working with the same people, they have to prove their skills time and time again that they can actually do the work. When men start, it's kind of a given that they know what they have to do. They have to prove that they don't know how to do the work, whereas women have to prove that they do know how to do the work. At least that's been the perception, right? So in 2019, we did a very limited group of women that I thought were doing really well in the industry. And we did a survey to them. And each interviewed ironworker woman stated that she had experienced some form of gender discrimination or sexual harassment. So examples of that were improper fitting safety gear, improper PPE, you know, that they had on the job, inadequate restroom facilities. And I'm going to go deeper into that later. They get fewer work hours and opportunities for training and advancement, working in isolation or being ignored, routinely assigned menial work because they didn't think they could do it, belittling or mocking behavior, physical intimidation and joking and blocking, job site stalking and staring. We actually had women that have driven home and had somebody follow them all the way home. Again, I want to reiterate, 95% of our workers are really good guys, but that 5 to 10% we need help with. So apprentices, younger apprentices and LGBTQ iron workers stated they endured daily or near daily or frequent harassment. So with that, around the same time, ENR came out with their study. And I'm not going to go into this whole thing, but there's a couple things that I want to show you. So have you personally experienced sexual harassment? 36% of the women said they did. First, let's talk about this survey. This was done to all sectors of construction. So it wasn't just women, tradeswomen, it was also those project managers and quality control and all of those. So 36.2% of them said they did. And 37% said that it was construction sector premise or workplace. So it was on the job. How would you characterize the harassment experience you experienced personally? So 24% said it wasn't applicable. That's awesome. Inappropriate personal requests, questions, jokes, or innuendos, 63%. So that's probably us as well as the other women. Inappropriate physical contact, 29%. Suggestive text messages or emails, 15%. Threats of retaliation, 7.4%. So then you go to the last column and it says, how did you handle the incident? Like, report it to human resources, 12.4%. That's probably not tradeswomen, because generally human resources is not on the job and it's just not something they would do. I reported it to my manager, almost 20%. I've not taken any action or spoken publicly about the incident. This is probably tradeswomen, 26.4%. I only shared incidents of the details with a colleague informally. That's probably all of us, 32.9%. When you see at the bottom, and I think this is what's important, because I've also heard throughout my career that I'm just looking for a lawsuit, or tradeswomen are just looking for a lawsuit. So when you look at this, I filed an EEOC claim, 1%. I filed a lawsuit, 0.5%. So women are not looking for a lawsuit. Ladies and gentlemen, they are looking to go to work and to have a career and make that middle class wages, which is so important today. And I'm hoping that we can unmute folks for a minute and talk about this amongst ourselves for a few minutes. What do you think is the most difficult thing about being a woman in today's society? And let's open this up to women and men and just jump in there and say what it is, what you think it is. And then we'll talk about the men after that, because you're going to find some interesting things here. So do you mind opening up so people can talk right now? Nobody's talking. Well, I'm going to start.
Give me just a second here, Vicki, I'll get it.
Sure, great, thanks. So one of the things that I always feel when I'm alone in a parking lot, right? I'm walking out from a store and I'm going to my car. Before we used to have the keys in our hands, right? Like right between our knuckles. Well, now they don't come with keys anymore. So you can't even do that. But I remember my dad always telling me that that's something that I should do. And I remember my dad telling me as a child to pay attention where we were going, because my dad was going to have me tell us how to get home. And when I was going on my first date, my dad says, remember, how you would pay attention to where you're going and how to get home? And I'm like, yeah, Dad. And he's like, well, pay attention where you're going tonight, because if you need me to come pick you up, I need to be able to know how to tell you to get there. But what else do you think is difficult for a woman today in our society? Any women want to speak up?
Everybody should be able to unmute themselves to talk.
Great.
Well, it seems as though with more equality and diversity being noted in the workplace, that the classic white male is feeling a bit threatened, it seems, not knowing how to deal with this. So I think men in general need a lot of education because they get it, only from their, upbringing, childhood, social interactions, perhaps. And what does a professional relationship with women look like? I'm not sure a lot of men know what that is.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they expect us to be their work wives, right? or you'll hear women can talk about their work husbands. And we can keep talking about women, but why don't we talk about men too? Because we do have some men on here. What's difficult today about being a man in today's society? And I'll tell you, one of the things I've heard in doing this is that you don't know, like, let's say you're just starting to date, and who pays? Is it who asks? Is it okay to open the door? Right? And I think that's horrible that a man's got to worry about that. It wasn't that way when I started dating. But I've also heard things like having women fear me. Like if a woman jumps on the elevator and there's a guy there and all of a sudden they tense up, and he's a good guy. So, he wants to know how he can make her feel more at ease, but he also has the burden of doing that. And that's horrible. We've got a lot of things going on in today's society that we have to worry about. So I think that we need to keep that in the backs of our heads, that there's difficult things for women. We have to worry about being raped, and men generally don't have to worry about that. And we don't know, because you don't have like good guy plastered to the top of your forehead. So it's hard to know who the good guy is and who the bad guy is. And I've actually had a man, when I was coming out of a store, saw my apprehension of him. And he's like, how about if I just stay here and I'll watch you go to your car? Is that okay? And I was like, wow, that was really cool, because he immediately put me at ease, but he also let me know that he was going to help if something happened in the parking lot. So I just wanted to kind of bring that to the forefront, that, there's some things that suck about being either in today's society. So why should we care? Why do we care about diversity? Why do we care about this bullying, harassment, and intimidation? And the one thing I wanted to draw attention to in this photo is this is a man and woman. They're out of LA working together. And Shannon Russell is the woman in this picture, and she's a kick-ass iron worker. She's blazed a trail for herself. She's a connector, which you don't see very many of in our industry. And she's working with a guy they called Ice Pick, and they laughed and they joked all day. And that's how it should be. We should every day go to work and be able to have a good time and laugh and joke and not get it too personal. And this is just the epitome to me of what ironwork looks like and the kind of good time we should be having. But what does success look like? So success for me looks like an expanded pool of candidates that look like the United States and increased market share, right? The more we look like the United States, the more market share we're going to get. That public image, it just looks better having everybody looks like us, and social justice. And then you have equal employment opportunity and affirmative action regulations. I'm not going to pretend that I didn't get in under a PLA in 1985. Back then, I was in the first group of ironworker women in my local because McCormick Place was a federal job that needed women. And back in 1978, Jimmy Carter said that he had a directive that there would be 6.9% women in construction. And here we are in 2022, and we're still not there. But I'm thankful that I got my opportunity and I was able to work on that project and have a career that gave me a path to the middle class. There's also a community benefit. For me, being able to buy a house for myself when I was 25 years old was huge. And that, by me being able to buy a house, just brought the community up. And then those agreements and project labor agreements, that's what gave me my start. But my work ethic is what kept me going. But it did give me the beginning of my career. So when you count the cost of bullying, harassment, and intimidation on a job, a lot of times victims are going to use sick leave. Now, in the trades, you don't get sick leave. You come in, if you don't come in, you don't get paid. But they do that to avoid a hostile situation. But what that does is slow down the overall production when a job site's shorthanded. Turnover is expensive. It costs a lot of money to find and recruit, hire, train, onboard, all that good stuff. But it also hurts morale and productivity that directly impacts the company's revenue. The EEOC recovered nearly 70 million for victims in the fiscal year 2018, and that's up from 47.5 million in 2017. This is a small fraction of the number of lawsuits for harassment and discrimination, not so much in the construction industry, but women who leave the construction industry, like we talked about before, indicated it wasn't because the work was too difficult or dangerous. They pointed to a hostile work environment and harassment as the cause. But keep this in mind, the cost of training one apprentice ironworker is approximately $58,000 for a 4-year program. That's substantial investment in both time and money. But the thing is, if we lose one, it's compounded, right? So you lose somebody in their second year, you've already invested $26,000 in them, they quit. And now we've got to start at the beginning and hire another apprentice and get them trained up to that point. But it just keeps snowballing. We can't afford to keep losing folks because of this. But what does diversity have to do with safety? How harassment it impacts your work environment? So it really does affect more than the victim. Bullying, harassment, it has this dangerous domino effect on the job site. And it's not just the person that's being harassed that's at risk. A harasser is focusing on their target. A victim's focusing on the harasser and the fear instilled by the situation. And the witnesses are focusing on the situation as it unfolds and often distracted, and they're upset by the events. The outcome is safety is compromised, and a whole group of workers then aren't putting their best foot forward, and their attention is not in the job. And in ironwork, that lack of focus can actually have deadly consequences. So we really need to work on how do we handle these types of situations. And I told you I would talk about bathrooms again, and separate restrooms for women on job sites are a real health consideration. But I don't want you to do that at the risk of men getting one less bathroom. What I've heard is, and what I've seen is that, say there's 3 bathrooms on the job site to begin with, a woman comes on the job and they go, oh, let's put a lock on that one and she'll have her own bathroom. That's awesome. But now you've just made conditions for men worse. And you're also setting her up for ridicule and for harassment. So get the other bathroom. It doesn't cost that much money. It's $150 to $300 across the country per month for an extra porta-john. It doesn't cost that much. But urinary tract infections are common among tradeswomen because they don't want to use the bathrooms. Why? They're harassed for taking too long. And then they're ridiculed. You know, you think you're special, you don't deserve your own bathroom. And I'm going to be honest with you, women have a biohazard situation once a month, and they need a clean, sanitary place to deal with. And I'm going to tell you a story. When I first started, it was my first winter as an iron worker working on a high rise. And one was they didn't have lids on the bathrooms when you get further up on the building. Well, I'm not going to the bathroom in that one because the connectors could see right in there. Not happening. The other thing is I was cold and my dad told me, get the Carhartts, the one-piece jumpsuit Carhartts. They'll keep you warm. It'll be great. I'm like, yeah, cool. So I get these Carhartts. I wear them the first day. And I realized this is probably not great for a woman because now I have to take off everything to go to the bathroom. I got to unzip this thing. I got to bring it down. Now I'm holding the top part and trying to, because you never sit on a porta-john, you kind of hover, and I'm hovering, and then right to the left of me is the urinal. Most disgusting thing ever. But I realized that day that, well, Carhartt jumpsuits were really warm. They were not good for women. So just take it from me, little piece of advice, Carhartt jumpsuits, not the best. But these porta-johns can also pose a significant risk for anyone, not just women, on an open job site when security measures aren't in place. So let me first explain what I mean by that. Generally, if they do have a women's bathroom, it's clear across the job site. It's not with the other ones. Either we have to go get a key or there's a combination lock on it. And if we're clear across the job sites and we're not where our good brothers are that can keep a jerk from banging on the door, or, you know, where we're just most vulnerable. So try to keep that in mind with the bathroom situation. And generally when I'm doing this at this point, we would talk about bystanders' response to harassment situations. And we are going to a little bit, but not go into as in depth as I would if I were actually doing this training. But there's 4 Ds of bystander intervention. And first, I want you to know everyone can help. We just don't want you to be a bystander. So step in and step up. You can do this directly. You can tell people to stop it or knock it off. Distraction's great too. Change the topic to help the individual get away. Delegate to another person to get help. And then we want you to do that delayed action. Check in with that person afterwards. Every single person has a responsibility to a safe workplace. So let's talk about that a little further. The best way to intervene is to help the victim exit the situation. That could be by telling them, your boss told me to come get you. He needs you now. I need to talk to you about something. Can you come over here for a second? Can you help me with something? Hey, head to the job shack, foreman's calling you. But the other thing is that we've all had bad days. And even our good guys, that 90 to 95%, have had a bad day. Something might be going on at home and they just snap for no reason. And that's a really good reason to intervene to keep your good brother from getting into illegal harassment. And again, allowing the victim to get away from this aggressor. And you don't have to do it in your face kind of way. So, you know, there is that direct way of, hey, knock it off. I need to talk to you about something. Hey, what's going on here? Or can you believe, and I put the Toronto Raptors, and I don't know why, it should have been somebody else, or can you help me with something? But there's so many different ways that you can change the tone and change the situation, that I'm just asking you to think of those things that are within your personality. You don't have to do something that's not comfortable for you, but you should step in. And here's where we would talk about training scenarios. And generally in our training, I would pass out training scenarios, different ones, different things that have happened to real tradeswomen, and ask each one of them to, what would you do if you were the foreman on the job? How would you react if you were the business agent that came out to check on this job? That sort of thing. And I think that's important to actually see it from different lens for each person. And I'm going to play a video right now that I think really sums it up.
Morning. Where are you going? I'm picking up the propane heaters. Is it left or right? What do I look like, dispatch?
Don't they tell you guys anything?
Yeah, they gave me the location.
And you're here.
I think it truly often starts as innocent teasing.
Guys, seriously, is it left or right?
Oh, look at that. It's break time.
It gets bigger and the comments get harsher and it gets more personal. And at some point, the line is crossed. They call you an idiot, they call you stupid, kind of get bumped around like you're not the person on the crew that anybody wants, and everybody jokes about it. And it kind of gets to the point where now you're getting bullied and harassed by the whole crew.
It's just a nightmare because it's not that they don't want you there, is that they want to have some fun at your expense. They want you to sweat. They want to see you make mistakes. They want to see all that stuff happen, and it's for their entertainment.
What's said escalates each time, and each worker tries to outdo what the last guy said to whoever the target is. And pretty soon the crew are doing things and saying things that they would never dream of doing or saying, you know, in a normal setting.
It's a toxic environment to be in if there's bullying and harassment going on all the time.
It poisons everything. It affects everyone. It's not just the construction site. You're going to take it home, and now you're driving in traffic, and you might get in a traffic accident because you're distracted, or you're going home and you yell at your kids, and then your kids think you don't love them. And it's just that ripple effect where it absolutely affects everyone when bullying and harassment happens. It's not insular, and it's not just the people involved. It is literally that ripple effect where it affects everything.
You know, I can remember days where I didn't really want to pick up the phone and call to see if I was working because I really didn't want to go in. But the pile of bills on the end table said I had to pick up the phone.
I really wonder how many really good employees I've lost because of bullying. I'll never know.
You feel lonely. You feel depressed. You feel extreme states of sadness. You feel confused. You feel angry. You feel completely emotional.
I used to go off in the bathroom and lock myself in and cry because I was so angry that I was either going to hit somebody or I'd cry. And I wasn't about to hit people, so I would just go off in a corner and cry. And wash my face and go right back to work because I needed to provide for my son.
There's nothing worse than walking in a room and everybody's giving you a bad time. There's no positive feelings that arise out of that. If you don't feel like you belong there, you start to believe what they're telling you.
You may not like the people that you work with, but you have to maintain a certain type of professionalism.
I teach the girls to look at these guys and say, would you like it if somebody said that to your daughter? Would you like it if somebody said that to your wife? And it tends to change the guy's perspective because all of a sudden there's this young woman who's standing in front of them and say, wait a minute, that's not okay with me. Stop it. And would you say that? Would you like your wife to know that that's what you're saying to a young woman?
It's harassment, really, because, you know, the next person beside them, they'll treat completely different because of the gender, right?
When I was a young foreman, we had a really good young apprentice on our crew. No matter what he did, he was picked on for it. He was nitpicked on the crew. Nothing was ever good enough.
We good? Yeah, sure.
I found myself saying stuff to the young apprentice that was said to me when I was a young apprentice. And it was when I heard myself saying that stuff when I realized that the culture had to change in our crew.
Why would you put a wall here? You not see the lines?
I think I wasted a lot of energy on being the wrong type of leader.
Who wants to go beyond the call of duty for someone that screams and rants and raves at you all day long? Who says that you don't know what you're doing and you don't have the skill set and you're a loser? How does that motivate you to to work hard and to be committed. It doesn't.
Was it bullying to me? No, I don't think I thought about it that way. But when you think of how much you really yell and drive guys, there is bullying in there.
The supervisor can't be the problem. If the supervisor and our supervision remain to be the problem, then nothing's going to change.
If you stand by, you're saying that it's acceptable for what's happening. And to me, if you're saying it's acceptable for that to happen, then you're just as culpable for what's happening as the person who's doing it.
It's about being professional, having a professionalism in your workplace. We want to teach people now. We want to make sure everybody's working safely, everybody's comfortable in what they're doing.
We want zero accidents. And if bullying or being harassed is getting into somebody's head, they're going to make a mistake sooner or later. And that's something we don't want.
Our jobs are dangerous enough. You cannot bring that extra level of distrust into a job. You cannot.
Bullying is something that has to stop. Every smart CEO knows that. Every smart CEO has to ensure that it doesn't happen in their company, and they have to lead by example.
I've had, people say to me before, if we can't bully and harass people on the job site, all that's going to be left to do is put buildings up.
Pretty crazy, right? I mean, they pretty much said exactly what I was trying to say. And sorry about that. I just messed myself up there. Try this again. Sorry, guys. So I have a couple more videos. I'm just going to show this last video, and then I'm going to show you the Ironworkers Pledge.
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sexual harassment.
Masculinity.
Is this the best a man can get? Is it? It's been going on far too long. Can't laugh it off.
What I actually think she's trying to say.
Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
But something finally changed.
Allegations regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment.
And there will be no going back. Because we believe in the best in men.
Come on.
To say the right thing. To act the right way.
Bro, not cool. Not cool.
Some already are. In ways big
Yo, men, we're everywhere.
and small.
I am strong.
But some is not enough.
Is that how we treat each other, okay?
Because the boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow.
I just think that's one of the a great video. I'm going to bypass on that one. Generally, when we get to the end of our training session, the ironworkers take this pledge, and I will be that one guy who tells a coworker, foreman, general foreman, et cetera, to knock it off. It only takes one to do the right thing. I will be that one guy who realizes that the person that's being bullied, intimidated, or on the receiving end of microaggression could be a mom, dad, sister, brother, daughter, son, niece, or nephew. I will be that one guy who treats all coworkers as a sister or brother ironworker. I will be that one guy who teaches the tricks of the trade rather than assuming that because of their gender, they'll not be here long. And I'll be that one guy who goes home to his or her family knowing that they did no harm to someone else's. And I'll be that one guy who creates a safe haven for all workers. When a worker is worried about their safety other than the actual work itself, it creates a hazard itself. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and see if anybody has any questions.
You all can also type your questions in the chat box if you would prefer that method instead of just asking. You all should still have the option to unmute yourself. So if you want to just verbally ask the question, you can do so that way as well.
Well, I love that somebody put in the chat the IWPR study. So thank you for that. That's awesome. Some great stuff in there just to get a pulse on what's going on with tradeswomen in construction. And again, I don't want anybody to think that I am bashing men, because I'm not. We need you. We need you to help change the culture and, just be the voice that we need on a job site. And I see somebody says that they can't unmute.
Sorry, I just fixed it. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Well, first, thanks for the information. And I definitely do agree that, we have to be advocates for each other in the workforce. Working in the power industry, I see a lot of stereotypes, especially with titles of jobs. Take, for instance, a lineman. We've recently changed ours to be a different title that's more inclusive, but there's still the big stereotype of it's an only man's job. And how do we break that barrier, or how do you see that barrier getting broken to even have women encouraged to apply? Because I go to schools on a routine basis, talk about career fairs, and to a point, I go out of my way a lot to try and get more women engaged in this part of the workforce. But it seems like there's just that, I don't know if it's a brain block or stereotype or what it is that just says, oh, I can't do that. How do we get past that? Because I've seen quite a few women in our industry that have excelled.
Well, what I would suggest, first of all, I'm a journeyman, and I know that that's not politically correct today, but for me, it's a status, not a gender, and I earned it. So I'm going to be a journeyman. I guess maybe I'm old school, but I am a journeyman. But to your question, bring that kick-ass woman with you that is doing a great job. Because if they see a guy, and I know that at career fairs and all that stuff, they see a white guy sitting behind a booth, they don't see themselves there. But if you pour out a woman there, or you at least had a video going that showed women in such a great light, working, doing the work, it helps, because you can't see what you cannot be what you cannot see. So you have to see yourself in there somehow. So bring a woman with you.
Very, very good advice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Definitely put it into play, because we need more trades every day.
Yeah, and I think we realized that, women are 51% of the population, and we don't have right now enough men that want to be in construction. But when you start talking about the great benefits that the trades brings and the middle class pay scale that you're going to bring to them, I think it's so important that, we're going to have to open up our doors like we never have before with this infrastructure bill. And we're going to have to get more women and people of color to come help with these jobs. And I see a few ironworkers in here. So I want to say, hey, brothers, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. Anybody else?
Hey, Vicki?
Yes.
Bill Gerhardt here with the laborers. I've got a question. In this era where civil society is becoming less and less civil, are job sites becoming more and more civil toward people of diverse workforce now? It seems like it is. And maybe it's because the younger people joining us are more used to diversity than us old guys. And maybe as us old guys go off into the sunset, things will be a lot easier in general. So
I think it is getting better. I think we're going to see more of that with the younger generation, but it also seems like where there's contractors that are big on diversity, but also on equity and inclusion, and they have policies that back this up, and their orientations state from the beginning that it's not going to be tolerated, then that's going to change faster for us.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Anybody else? I don't hear anybody or see anybody with their hands up. Well, I really want to thank you for inviting me. This has been really special to be able to spend some time with my Midwest folks. So thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you, Vicki, and thanks to everyone who attended. Again, Vicki has agreed to be our keynote speaker for our 2022 Hawkeye and Safety Conference, which will be September 8th at the Coralville Marriott, as it has been in the previous quite a few years. So we hope to see everybody then. More information on that will be coming out, in addition to hopefully before the end of the week or early next week, the information for our next month's webinar, Hawkeye and Safety webinar, will be finalized, and we'll get that information out to everyone too. So we did record this webinar, and we will be posting that into the Hawkeye and Safety website embedded into the Heartland Center's YouTube channel. So we'll get a final to all of those of you that have participated or registered. We'll get that link set out if you would like to view it later. I know that there were some of the organizations who was not able to have all of their apprentices or all of their groups attend. So if that's the case, we've recorded it so you can have them watch it at a later date. So with that, again, thank you, Vicki, and thank you everyone for attending, and we will close out for today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.